What if the reason people overlook you isn't because of how you look, but because of how you carry yourself? Think about that. Think about the times you walked into a room and felt invisible. Not because you weren't good enough. Not because you didn't try, but because something inside you whispered, shrink. Don't take up space. Don't be seen. And so, you faded, not by accident, but by habit. But here's the truth. Attraction isn't about being the best-looking person in the room. It's about being the most present, the most self-assured, the one who doesn't need to seek attention because they already own their space. This isn't about arrogance, it's about energy. And people feel energy before they notice anything else. You can change your hair, your clothes, your style. But if your energy says, I don't believe in myself, that's what the world hears. That's what people respond to. But the good news? That energy is not fixed. It's not something you were born with or without. It's shaped, built, and rebuilt through habits that align with your self-worth, your confidence, and your truth. Deep down you already know this, because you've met people who aren't conventionally attractive, yet they walk into a room and everyone turns. They don't force it. They don't fake it. They're it. That presence, that invisible pull, you can feel it. That's what you're about to unlock. This journey isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about removing what's been blocking the real you. The strong, calm, grounded version of you who isn't waiting for permission to show up fully. And yes, that version already lives inside you. Right now. Maybe it's been buried under fear. Maybe it's been silenced by rejection or doubt. But it's there. And every habit you're going to learn in this video is a key to bringing that version out into the open. These habits aren't complicated. They're not gimmicks. They're not about trying harder. They're about becoming, about shifting how you think, speak, move, and engage with the world so that people feel something different when they're around you. Stay with this, because by the end, you won't just understand what makes someone truly attractive. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll realize you don't need to chase anyone. You don't need to prove anything. You simply need to align with who you already are when fear and self-doubt aren't in control. This isn't about impressing others. It's about owning your power so fully that the right people can't help but notice. If you've ever felt overlooked, forgotten, or not enough, this is your wake-up call. Because starting now, everything changes. Attraction is not a lightning strike. It's a pattern, a rhythm, a silent signal you send out every single day. And that signal is built on your habits. Not the dramatic, life-altering kind, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones no one sees but everyone feels. These habits form the blueprint of how others experience you. If your habits reflect insecurity, hesitation, or self-neglect, people won't consciously notice, but something in them will pull away. If your habits reflect strength, intention, and emotional steadiness, they lean in, not because you asked them to, but because your presence gave them something to trust. That's how attraction works. It's not about luck. It's not about being born with something special. It's about choosing day by day to operate differently, to move with intention instead of fear, to speak with clarity instead of noise, to hold your space instead of shrinking. That's the shift. And that shift begins with how you see yourself when no one's watching. That's the foundation. Because the truth is, people treat you how you treat you. They mirror your energy. If you walk into a room doubting yourself, they will doubt you. If you enter certain of your value, they may not understand it right away, but they will feel it. That quiet, grounded power is unforgettable. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's composed. And the brain responds to composure. We're wired to trust calm energy, to be drawn to clarity. That's why people who seem unfazed by chaos or criticism are so captivating. It's not that life doesn't shake them, it's that they've trained themselves to stand still inside the storm. That's a habit, that's a choice, and that's something you can build. You don't need anyone else's permission to be powerful. You don't need validation to walk tall. You simply need to rewire your daily patterns to match the person you want to be seen as. And that's the beauty of it. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about removing the noise that's dimmed your light. You already have everything inside you to be magnetic. You just haven't learned how to activate it consistently. These next steps will show you how to create that consistency. Not by forcing behavior, but by aligning with a mindset that commands attention without demanding it. You don't need to chase. You don't need to explain. You need to embody. And when your habits start to reflect that embodiment, people respond in ways you've never experienced before. So take this seriously, because the smallest shift in how you carry yourself can completely transform how others respond to you. This is about owning your space, speaking when it matters, listening with presence, moving with certainty. It's all habit. And once you master that foundation, attraction is no longer an effort. It becomes the natural result of who you've decided to become. Keep going. You're not becoming someone new. You're finally returning to who you've always been, underneath all the noise. One of the most magnetic habits you can develop is stillness. Not silence, not absence, stillness. The kind of inner calm that doesn't flinch when life tests you. The kind of composure that holds its ground while everything else scrambles for attention. People are drawn to this energy because it's rare. In a world addicted to noise, someone who doesn't need to prove anything becomes instantly noticeable. That calm doesn't come from pretending. It comes from knowing your worth, knowing your direction, knowing that you don't have to chase anyone or anything to feel valuable. That knowing becomes your gravity. It pulls people in without trying. Most people move through life reacting. Every comment, every look, every rejection hits them like a wave, and they try to swim harder, faster, louder. But the ones who attract the most aren't the loudest. They're the most grounded. That's what people feel. It's emotional safety. When your energy says I am unshaken, people trust it. And attraction, real attraction, begins with trust. Not tricks, not games, but a deep instinctive sense that you are solid, that you're not easily moved by judgment, fear, or desperation, that you know how to hold your own space, and that space is safe, intentional, and real. Stillness is trained through presence, through slowing your mind, through resisting the need to fill every silence with explanation, through pausing before reacting, through observing before responding. This habit shifts everything, because when you stop scrambling for approval, you start exuding peace. And peace is power. It's strength without force. It's leadership without dominance. It's beauty that doesn't scream for attention, because it knows it already has it. That's what the world responds to. Not just your appearance, not just your words, but your energy when you walk in a room and your presence speaks before you do. If you can master this, people won't just see you differently, they'll feel you differently. And that feeling lingers. Long after the conversation ends, long after the moment passes, your presence will stay with them. That's the impact of someone who is internally aligned, not desperate for attention, but deeply connected to who they are. This is not about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally centered. You're still human, you still feel, but you no longer let your emotions run wild. You feel everything, but you don't become everything. That's the shift, that's the habit, and that's where your power begins to surface. Every time you choose calm over chaos, presence over panic, strength over insecurity, you rewire your nervous system to support your highest self. And from that state, you attract not because you want something from others, but because you're already full. And people are drawn to fullness, to stability, to someone who doesn't just exist, but embodies. You are not invisible. You've just been too loud in the wrong places and too quiet in your own soul. Now is the time to reverse that. Let the world meet your quiet power. Let them feel what you've been hiding. When you walk with self-respect, everything changes. You don't beg for attention. You don't chase what doesn't see your value. You no longer tolerate what breaks your peace. Because self-respect isn't about pride. It's about standards. It's about knowing that how you allow people to treat you is a reflection of how you treat yourself. When you raise your standards, you don't lose people. You lose the ones who are only around because you didn't have any. And that loss, that's not rejection. That's clarity. That's growth. That's the moment you begin to attract people who actually see you, because now finally you see yourself. Self-respect is built in silence, in the choices no one else witnesses, in the moments you say no to things that feel wrong, in the discipline of walking away when your boundaries are crossed. It's uncomfortable, it's not always rewarded, but it's magnetic. Because when someone carries the energy of I won't abandon myself to please others, people notice. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. That kind of presence stands out. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't seek permission. It speaks without shouting. That's real power, and that's what makes someone deeply attractive, not for a moment, but for a lifetime. People confuse attraction with attention, but attention is cheap. Anyone can get it by being loud, controversial, or needy. Real attraction, the kind that lasts, comes from integrity, from the way you hold yourself when no one is looking, from the way you refuse to settle for half love, for fake friends, for anything less than real. That refusal isn't cold, it's clarity. It shows that you've done the work, that you've healed, that you no longer fear being alone because you've become your own home. That's rare, and that rarity draws others in like gravity, not because you're performing, but because you've become whole. When you respect yourself, you stop trying to prove your worth, you stop explaining your boundaries, you stop justifying your standards. Instead, you live them. You become the message, you embody the value, and those who aren't aligned with it naturally fade away. That's not a loss, it's alignment. It creates space for what actually belongs in your life. The more you live from that truth, the more magnetic you become. Because people crave what's real. They're exhausted by pretense, by superficial charm, by emptiness wrapped in a pretty package. When they feel your strength, your clarity, your deep respect for yourself, they remember you. This habit of self-respect isn't just a mindset. It's a practice, it's a discipline, and it's a signal. It tells the world, I've done the work, I know who I am. I will not lower my energy to be chosen, I will rise. And if that intimidates anyone, they were never meant to stand beside you. Let that be your truth. Let it shape your decisions. Let it cleanse your life of anything that dulls your light. Because when you move with self-respect, you stop blending in and start standing out without even trying. There's something undeniably powerful about someone who takes care of themselves. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It speaks volumes without a single word. Because self-care isn't about luxury, it's about self-worth. It's a statement, I matter. My peace matters. My body, my mind, my energy, it all matters. And when you live that truth daily, it becomes visible. People can feel when you're grounded in your own well-being. They sense the stability. They notice the glow that doesn't come from makeup or clothes, but from the discipline of showing up for yourself every single day, especially when it's hard. Taking care of yourself is the foundation of attraction because it signals self-responsibility. It means you're not waiting for someone else to fix you, complete you, or save you. You're doing the work. You're building from the inside out. You're creating a life where your needs aren't neglected. They're respected. And that kind of presence is rare. It's refreshing. It doesn't scream, look at me. It quietly radiates, I'm whole. That wholeness makes others feel safe. It inspires trust. It invites respect. It tells people you're not here to drain them. You're here to elevate everything you touch. When you nourish your body, you shift your chemistry. You shift your mood. You build energy that speaks before you do. You carry yourself differently because you feel different. Your posture, your eye contact, your tone, they all align with the care you give yourself. And people feel that alignment. They may not know why they're drawn to you, but they are. Because self-respect shows up in your habits. And those habits become your signal. A signal that says, I'm not just existing, I'm thriving. That energy attracts people who want to grow, not stay stuck. People who want depth, not drama. People who want truth, not performance. This isn't about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about valuing your mental health enough to say no to toxic thoughts. About valuing your body enough to feed it what it needs, not just what it craves. About valuing your spirit enough to protect your peace. These choices build a magnetic field around you. You stop begging for respect because you already give it to yourself. And that's when people notice. That's when they start to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. You become someone who leads with presence, someone who brings calm into chaos, someone who inspires others just by being real. Because the deepest form of beauty is alignment. When your actions match your values, when your habits reflect your self-worth, when your energy is clean and your boundaries are firm, people feel that. They lean in. Not because you forced them to, but because you showed them what it looks like to love yourself without apology. That's rare. That's unforgettable. That's what makes you more than seen. It makes you remembered, not for what you have, but for who you've chosen to become. Confidence without arrogance. That's the energy that shifts everything. When you walk into a room and you're not trying to prove yourself, but you know your worth, you become magnetic. Because confidence is not about being louder than others. It's about being sure of yourself even in silence. It's the calm in your eyes, the strength in your posture, the steadiness in your voice. And that kind of confidence doesn't come from pretending. It comes from doing the hard inner work, from showing up for yourself on the days you didn't feel like it, from knowing what you bring to the table, and refusing to shrink so others feel comfortable. You don't have to compete when you're confident. You don't have to seek validation. You don't need applause, likes, or constant reassurance. Because confidence isn't something you wait for, it's something you choose. You build it by keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every time you follow through, even when it's inconvenient, you strengthen the belief that you can trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, others feel it. They sense it in how you move, in how you speak, in how you stay grounded when others waver. It creates an emotional pull. People are drawn to stability in a world full of noise. Confidence doesn't mean you never feel doubt. It means you don't let doubt decide your actions. It means you've learned how to move forward without all the answers. It means you know you can handle discomfort, rejection, and failure. Because you've faced it, and you're still standing. That resilience is attractive. That quiet strength is unforgettable. It says, I've fallen and risen. I've hurt and healed. And I didn't lose myself in the process. People are drawn to those who have scars and still shine, who've been broken and still show up with open hearts. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. You just have to be real. Own your flaws. Embrace your growth. Show the world that confidence isn't about being better than anyone. It's about being better than who you used to be. It's about progress, alignment, inner peace. That's the kind of confidence that leaves an impact. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because your energy couldn't be ignored. When you believe in yourself deeply, you give others permission to do the same. You inspire them to stop hiding, to stop waiting, to rise. And that influence, that quiet leadership, is the most attractive thing of all. It's not about having the perfect look, the perfect words, or the perfect life. It's about showing up as yourself and standing firm in your truth. No masks, no performance, just presence. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't fade. It grows stronger with time. And the more you live from it, the more you realize you never had to chase attention. You only had to become someone worth remembering. Attraction deepens when you become someone who listens with intention. In a world where everyone's trying to be heard, being the one who hears is rare. Truly listening, without interrupting, without planning your response, without trying to fix or control, just being fully present. That kind of presence is powerful. It tells others they matter. It shows them they're safe with you. And safety, more than anything, builds connection. It creates trust. It opens doors that no appearance ever could. Because when people feel understood, they remember you. They lean into your energy, not because you talk the most, but because you listen the best. Being a strong listener doesn't mean being silent. It means being engaged. It means reading between the lines, catching what's not being said, sensing the emotions beneath the words. That's emotional intelligence. That's empathy in action. It shows maturity, care, depth, and those traits are magnetic. They make people feel seen in a world where most feel invisible. They make people feel chosen, not for how loud they are, but for who they are at their core. You don't have to impress anyone when you're the one who pays attention, because attention is the rarest and most valuable form of love in this fast-moving world. When you listen without judgment, you build emotional safety, and emotional safety is the real foundation of attraction. It creates comfort, ease, openness. You become someone people want to be around, not because you fix their problems, but because you don't make them feel wrong for having them. You become someone they can breathe around, someone they can trust with their truth. That's not something you can fake. It's something you embody, and the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. You stop trying to dominate conversations. You stop needing to be the center. Instead, you become the grounding force, the one who brings clarity just by being there. Listening is an act of strength, not weakness. It requires patience, discipline, and emotional control. It means putting your ego aside and choosing connection over control. It means showing up not to be right, but to understand. That kind of maturity speaks volumes. It shows you're secure in yourself. It shows you value others, and it makes people want to come closer, not because you demand their attention, but because your energy makes them feel valued without effort. Most people don't remember everything you say, but they never forget how you made them feel. When you learn to listen deeply, you start to make people feel something they don't get enough of: respected, valued, heard. And that's a powerful gift, one that instantly elevates your presence, one that makes people feel better just by being around you. In a noisy world, your quiet presence becomes unforgettable, and the more you practice this habit, the more you realize true power isn't found in your voice. It's found in your silence, when that silence makes space for others to feel seen. When you carry yourself with calm confidence, you shift the entire energy of the room without saying a word. It's not about being loud, flashy, or dominant. It's about quiet strength, that inner certainty that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. People feel it before they even understand it. They're drawn to it because it feels rare, grounded, and unshakable. True confidence doesn't beg for attention. It commands respect by presence alone. And that kind of confidence isn't built on ego. It's built on discipline, on knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you will no longer tolerate. Confidence starts with how you talk to yourself when no one is watching. It's the small decisions you make daily that reinforce your worth. Waking up and choosing action over comfort. Speaking truth when it would be easier to stay quiet. Walking away from what no longer aligns, even if it's familiar. Every time you do that, you reinforce your inner power. You remind yourself that you don't need validation to feel valuable. You don't need attention to know you matter. You become solid inside, and that solidity radiates outward. That's what makes people take notice. That's what sets you apart without even trying. Insecurity is loud. It chases approval. It performs. But confidence moves differently. It's calm, focused, and rooted. You don't need to overshare to feel seen. You don't need to compare to feel enough. You don't need to impress to feel loved. Because when you know your value, your silence becomes powerful. Your boundaries become clear. Your decisions become intentional. You stop leaking your energy trying to be everything for everyone. And instead you choose to be everything for yourself first. That shift changes everything. You walk differently when you believe in yourself. You look people in the eye with ease. You say no without guilt. You trust your instincts. You're not easily rattled by other people's opinions because you've done the inner work to validate yourself. That self-trust, that emotional self-reliance, it creates an aura, one that doesn't just attract but inspires. People respect what's real. They gravitate toward what feels honest, stable, and unshaken. And that's exactly what you become when your confidence comes from character, not just appearance. Building that kind of confidence takes practice. It's not given, it's earned. Through showing up for yourself even when it's hard. Through facing what you fear without shrinking. Through speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. And the more you do it, the more natural it feels. You stop asking, am I good enough? And start saying, I know who I am. That's power. That's presence. That's what makes people listen when you speak and feel your energy when you enter a space. Confidence rooted in authenticity doesn't just make you more attractive. It makes you unforgettable. Because it's rare. And rare is magnetic. Attraction is energy. And one of the most magnetic forms of energy is peace. Not the peace that comes from silence or escape, but the peace you carry within when the world around you is noisy. That kind of peace is rare. It means you don't chase chaos. You don't react to every trigger. You don't allow others to dictate your emotional state. When you master your emotional responses, you shift from being controlled to being in control. You stop moving through life like a match waiting to be lit, and instead become the calm flame that others seek when they're cold. That is powerful. That is unforgettable. When you're at peace, people feel safe around you, not because you fix their problems, but because you don't add to their noise. You listen without judgment. You speak without tension. You carry yourself with intention. And most of all, you don't let your moods run your life. That doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you regulate it. You feel everything deeply, but you process it with strength. That emotional maturity sets you apart. Because most people are still ruled by impulse, trapped in reaction, constantly chasing the next distraction. But you, when you embody peace, you become the presence that others remember. Calm is a rare currency in a world addicted to noise. And here's the truth. Peace isn't given, it's chosen. It's created in the small moments when you decide not to argue, when you choose not to scroll, when you step away instead of lashing out, when you breathe instead of biting back. Each time you do that, you train your nervous system to feel safe within itself. You teach your mind that it doesn't need drama to feel alive. You teach your heart that stillness is strength, not weakness. You begin to live from the inside out, not the outside in. And that shift makes you magnetic. Because people are drawn to stability in a world that constantly shakes. The more peace you create within, the less you seek it outside. You no longer need someone to validate you, fix you, or complete you. You become whole on your own. You become rooted. And when someone meets you, they don't just see your face, they feel your energy. Calm, grounded, unbothered. That energy is unforgettable because it speaks louder than words. It tells people, I know who I am, I know what I allow, I know what I protect. That clarity makes you stand out. That energy makes you glow. Peace is a form of power. It's not passive. It's intentional. It's the result of mastering your inner world so deeply that the outside world can no longer shake it. And once you reach that level of calm, your presence becomes a sanctuary. You're not just attractive, you're impactful. Because you're not just showing up with looks or charm. You're showing up with stability, with grace, with quiet strength. And in a world that's starving for peace, you become the calm they never knew they needed. Confidence without humility is arrogance. But confidence rooted in quiet self-respect is one of the most attractive forces on earth. It's not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists in how you walk, how you speak, and how you show up when no one is watching. Real confidence is not about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. It's when you stop comparing, stop competing, and start living from a place of deep personal truth. When you know who you are, and you're no longer trying to prove it to the world. You become radiant, not in an external way, but in an energy that people can feel. Calm, certain, secure. Confidence doesn't start with applause. It starts in silence. It starts when you look at yourself in the mirror and decide to accept who you are while still choosing to grow. It's built through action, not affirmation. Through promises you keep to yourself. Through discipline when no one is watching. Through showing up on the hard days when it would be easier to quit. That's the foundation. And from that foundation, you build trust. Trust in your ability to endure. Trust in your ability to improve. Trust that no matter what life throws at you, you will not break. You will adapt. And that inner trust is what makes you magnetic. Because people can sense when you're not easily shaken. When you're confident, you don't chase approval. You don't beg for validation. You move with clarity, and that clarity is contagious. It tells people, this is someone who values themselves. Someone who isn't afraid to take up space. Someone who respects their own time, energy, and presence, and therefore earns the respect of others. That's the key. When you value yourself, you teach others how to treat you. You stop settling. You stop shrinking. You stop pretending to be less just to make others feel more. You no longer tolerate what drains you, and you don't fear losing people who were never aligned with your worth to begin with. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway, to speak when your voice shakes, to act even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Every time you face discomfort and keep going, you grow, and that growth radiates from within. It changes your posture, your tone, your presence. It transforms the way you enter a room, not because you need to be noticed, but because you've stopped hiding. And when you stop hiding, you stop holding back. Your full self becomes visible. Your standards rise. Your vision sharpens. You stop asking for permission to exist and start walking like someone who belongs. This kind of confidence is not ego. It's alignment. It's knowing your value, standing on it, and refusing to shrink for anyone. And when you do that, when you walk in your truth without fear, you become impossible to ignore. Not because you're loud, but because you're whole. And in a world full of noise, wholeness is the loudest thing there is. If you want to walk in strength, you must stop abandoning yourself. Every time you say yes when your gut screams no, every time you shrink to make others comfortable, every time you silence your voice out of fear, you chip away at your own power. You weren't born to be invisible. You weren't made to be liked by everyone. You were built to be real. And real isn't always easy. Real means choosing your values over popularity. Real means honoring your boundaries, even if it costs you approval. Real means walking away from anything that forces you to betray your inner truth. You cannot expect the world to respect you when you don't respect yourself. Self-respect is not a luxury. It's a requirement. It's the quiet force behind every strong decision. It's the reason you walk away from what insults your soul. It's the reason you raise your standards and stop settling for scraps of love, attention, or recognition. Because when you truly respect yourself, you no longer accept the bare minimum. You no longer tolerate being an option. You no longer play small so someone else can feel big. You understand that your peace is priceless, and your energy is sacred. This is where everything begins to shift. When you draw the line, not to push others away, but to protect what you've been building inside. You're not hard to love. You're hard to manipulate. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not distant. You're discerning. That's the difference. You've simply outgrown versions of yourself that allowed disrespect to pass as connection. And now, you don't apologize for taking up space. You don't flinch when someone disapproves. You stand rooted not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you're done abandoning the most important relationship in your life, the one you have with yourself. When you stop abandoning yourself, you stop needing others to complete you. You stop chasing love from people who never learned how to love. You stop bending into shapes that were never meant for you. And in that moment, you reclaim your time, your focus, and your emotional freedom. You no longer move to be chosen. You choose yourself. And in doing so, you teach others what is and isn't allowed in your life. That's the power of alignment. That's the power of integrity. Every decision becomes sharper. Every boundary becomes cleaner. You stop entertaining chaos. You stop justifying dysfunction. You stop trying to rescue people who don't want to be saved. Instead, you invest that energy into your growth, into your healing, into your vision. Because now you understand, when you respect yourself enough to stop shrinking, the right people will rise to meet you. And the wrong ones will fall away. Not because you're better, but because you're finally in alignment with the life you were always meant to lead. You stop asking for less. You stop apologizing for more. You simply rise. And this time, you don't come back down. You don't owe your potential to anyone who tries to keep you small. The moment you realize that, everything changes. The pressure to fit in disappears. The need to explain yourself fades. The guilt for choosing yourself dissolves. Because deep down you know you weren't born to live a watered-down version of who you are. You were meant to break the mold, to walk past few are willing to take, to rise without permission. And that starts when you stop measuring your worth by how much you're tolerated, and start measuring it by how deeply you honor yourself. The world will always try to define you. It will put labels on you, expectations around you, and ceilings above you. But those ceilings only exist if you accept them. And those labels only stick if you wear them. You're not too much. You're not too intense. You're not too ambitious. You're just surrounded by people who've settled for less and feel threatened by your refusal to do the same. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to keep growing, even if it means outgrowing those around you. Your responsibility is to step into the fullness of who you are, even if it makes others uncomfortable. It takes courage to unlearn the need for external validation. It takes strength to listen to the voice within when the noise outside is loud. But that's where power lives, in your willingness to choose truth over comfort, growth over approval, and purpose over popularity. You cannot evolve and stay the same. You cannot rise and remain in places that demand your silence. You cannot lead your own life if you're still waiting to be led by the opinions of others. The truth is, not everyone will understand your transformation, and that's okay. It's not their path. It's yours. The more you rise, the more you'll be tested. Not because life is unfair, but because life is checking if you're truly committed. Are you willing to walk away from what's familiar to find what's right? Are you willing to stand alone to live in alignment? Are you willing to lose temporary comfort for permanent strength? These are the questions that define your next chapter. Not your past, not your mistakes, not who hurt you, but what you choose now, who you decide to become when it matters most. This is the moment where you stop begging for space and start creating it. You stop waiting to be seen and start seeing yourself. You stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. Every step forward is an act of rebellion against everything that tried to keep you stuck. Every boundary you set is a declaration of self-love. Every time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to your future. And piece by piece, you build a life that reflects your truth, not their expectations, not their approval, just your raw, unapologetic power. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs you, real, whole, and unstoppable. You are not here to shrink for the comfort of those who never intended to grow. You are here to expand, to rise, to confront everything that once silenced you and make a declaration with your life, that you will no longer abandon yourself to keep peace with people who are at war within themselves. Every time you honor your boundaries, every time you refuse to betray your values, every time you stand tall in your truth, you reclaim pieces of your soul that were once scattered trying to please others. That is not selfishness. That is survival. That is sacred. That is power. There is a difference between being liked and being respected. One requires performance, the other demands authenticity. You were not created to perform. You were created to live fully, deeply, and freely, and that kind of living will not please everyone. But it will liberate you. It will strip away the false layers you've worn to earn love that was always conditional. It will shatter illusions you've clung to for validation that never fed your spirit. When you stop performing and start showing up as you are, you stop attracting people who love your mask and start attracting people who respect your presence. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone who can't see it. You don't need to explain your boundaries to anyone who benefits from you having none. You don't need to stay in environments that drain you just because you once found comfort in them. Comfort can become a cage if it costs you your growth. Safety can become a prison if it demands your silence. You are not meant to stay stuck in places where you constantly have to fight to be understood. Your growth will offend people who are invested in a version of you that no longer exists. Let it. Their resistance is not a sign that you're wrong. It's a sign that you're rising beyond the narrative they built around you. There is no strength in shrinking. There is no virtue in self-abandonment. There is no reward in constantly explaining your evolution to people who never celebrated your becoming. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Guard your peace like it's rare, because it is. Carry yourself like someone who finally understands that peace is not found in being accepted, but in being aligned. And alignment comes when you refuse to negotiate your truth for temporary approval. You are not difficult. You are not too much. You are clear. You are focused. You are finally choosing yourself in a world that taught you to choose everyone else first. That is not arrogance. That is awakening. That is what it means to reclaim your life piece by piece, breath by breath. This is the moment where you step beyond fear and into conviction. No more shrinking. No more settling. No more explaining. You didn't come this far to dim your light. You came to set the world on fire with everything you were told to hide. You don't have to justify your healing. You don't need permission to rise. You are not obligated to stay small for the sake of anyone's comfort. Growth is disruptive by nature. It pulls you away from patterns, from people, from places that no longer match your frequency. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's lonely, at times. But that solitude is not emptiness. It's clarity. It's the sacred space where the old version of you dissolves and the new one begins to breathe. You are not falling apart. You are being reassembled into something stronger, sharper, more aligned with who you truly are. You've spent enough time shrinking, second-guessing, waiting to be chosen. The truth is, you were never meant to be picked by someone else. You were meant to pick yourself, to choose your peace, to choose your worth, to choose your healing, even when it feels heavy. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. You will be doubted. Let them. That noise cannot touch a mind that has decided to protect its peace. That resistance cannot penetrate a soul that has made peace with being misunderstood. Because once you stop needing validation, you start reclaiming your power. And that power isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It's silent, unwavering, rooted in knowing. The kind of knowing that says I am enough. The kind that no longer begs to be seen. Because it finally sees itself. You are done explaining your standards. You are done watering yourself down to be digestible. You are done entertaining chaos just to feel connection. You are no longer available for conversations that belittle your spirit or people who diminish your essence. That's not pride. That's protection. That's not coldness. That's clarity. Boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges to your truth. Discipline is not punishment. It is the language of self-respect. Walking away is not weakness. It is wisdom wrapped in courage. You owe it to yourself to build a life that doesn't betray your soul. You owe it to yourself to stand firm when the world tries to pull you back into patterns that broke you. You owe it to yourself to rise, even if your legs shake, even if your voice trembles, even if no one claps. You rise because your healing deserves it. You rise because your future needs it. There is nothing more dangerous to the forces of doubt than a person who knows their worth. Nothing more untouchable than a soul that has been through fire and chose to rise with grace instead of bitterness. Nothing more powerful than someone who no longer seeks to be accepted but instead dares to be authentic. This is your becoming. This is your alignment. This is the moment your silence ends and your truth begins. Walk boldly. Speak gently. Stand tall. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. Keep going. Keep growing. The world hasn't seen the full power of your truth yet. Let it unfold. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are casting a vote for the future you desire. Every moment you resist the urge to fold under pressure, you are telling life you refuse to be broken. You're not here to repeat cycles. You're not here to exist in the shadows of who you used to be. You're here to evolve, to outgrow, to outlast, and to outshine every version of yourself that ever doubted your own strength. Progress doesn't scream. It whispers. It happens in quiet decisions, in the unseen moments where you show up even when no one is watching. Especially then. That's where transformation lives. You are not the pain that tried to keep you small. You are not the noise that tried to convince you to give up. You are the decision to keep standing. You are the courage to keep choosing better, even when better feels far away. You are the fire that refuses to go out. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. Readiness is a myth. What matters is your willingness. The willingness to take the first step, the willingness to fail forward, the willingness to risk discomfort for the sake of growth. Comfort zones are slow poison. They seduce you into believing safety is the goal. But safety is not freedom. Comfort is not power. Growth demands movement. It demands pressure. It demands that you stop making excuses for why you're stuck and start making decisions that match your future, not your fears. Your life will not change through inspiration alone. It will change through consistency, through daily alignment, through radical ownership. The moment you stop waiting to feel like it and start acting like it, everything shifts. Motivation is fleeting, but identity is lasting. When you start acting like the person you want to become, the habits follow. And when the habits align, the results are inevitable. So stop negotiating with laziness. Stop arguing with procrastination. Stop entertaining the idea that your potential can wait. It can't. The clock is ticking, and every second you hesitate, you hand your power over to hesitation itself. Reclaim it. Own it. Move now. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right every time. You just have to stay in motion. Every setback is data. Every failure is feedback. Nothing is wasted unless you decide to stay down. If you're breathing, you're not finished. If you're trying, you're not failing. If you're aware, you're already ahead. Keep choosing growth over comfort. Keep choosing action over overthinking. Keep choosing your future over your fears. The gap between who you are and who you're meant to be is only closed through action. One choice, one moment, one commitment at a time. Stay focused. Stay relentless. Stay true. The life you want is already watching you. Show it who you are. Nothing changes until you do. Nothing moves until you move. Power is not something you wait for. It's something you claim. Right now, in this moment, you are standing at the edge of everything you've ever wanted. But it doesn't matter how close you are if you keep stepping back. You weren't made to shrink. You weren't built to hesitate. You were designed to push through resistance, to confront fear, to act in the face of uncertainty. The longer you wait for permission, the longer you delay your own breakthrough. Stop asking the world if it's your time. Start declaring that it is. Your greatness doesn't ask for approval. It demands execution. It requires that you show up like it already belongs to you. Confidence isn't something you find. It's something you generate by keeping promises to yourself, by following through, by showing up when it's uncomfortable. Discipline is love in action. It's the highest form of self-respect. Every time you keep going when it's easier to quit, you reinforce the truth that you are becoming unstoppable. And when that belief begins to take root, everything else begins to align. Your thoughts sharpen. Your energy rises. Your direction becomes clear. You stop reacting. You start responding. with intention, with clarity, with power. There is no shortcut to strength. There is no easy way to resilience. You don't get stronger by wishing for it. You get stronger by carrying the weight you used to avoid. You get stronger by facing the parts of you that are still scared, still small, still unsure, and doing it anyway. Strength is born in the moment you decide you won't negotiate with your limits anymore. It's born when you stop arguing for your excuses and start fighting for your evolution. This is your turning point. Not when it's easy, not when it's comfortable, but right here, in the middle of the pressure. Growth doesn't wait for perfect timing. It meets you in the fire, it meets you in the struggle, and it gives you the choice, burn down or burn through. You've tried hesitation. You've tried overthinking. You've tried sitting in silence hoping the fear would go away. Now try moving through it. Now try stepping in with your whole chest, with your whole heart, with no backup plan. Let discomfort stretch you. Let resistance forge you. You are not here to stay the same. You are here to rise. You are here to become undeniable. And that starts when you make a new agreement with yourself. No more waiting. No more blaming. No more doubting. You commit. You align. You execute. Relentlessly. Because the future you want is not waiting for your fear to calm down. It's waiting for your courage to wake up. Make the move. Not when it feels right, when it feels real. Now.